Hello, sixth grade. How are you doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Today is Thursday, July 16th, 2020. Welcome back to class. Today is our first conversation class after break. Today what we're going to be doing is discussing what is going on in the news, and then we're going to read a fictional story for further comprehension. So let's get started. Today what you were doing is just kind of talking about certain articles in the news. So a couple of articles that I found were just to kind of get us interested in some of the positive things that are happening in the news. We took turns by talking about certain things that have happened in January, February, March, April, and I think it's important that we understand that even though there's lots of negative things that are going on in the news, there's also some positive things. So the question on the top says, what good has come from 2020? Well, the first article is titled, "The World Came Together to Fight the Devastating Australian Wildfires." If you can see on the screen, there is a picture of looks like a firefighter, possibly from Australia, who is saving an animal that's indigenous to Australia. Do you know what animal that is? Yeah, you're right, it's a koala. Now, I think it's really important that we discuss the impact of how this really affected the entire world, not just Australia. And I think it's also important that we look at the animals that were affected, and everything around us kind of changed during that time. It was all over the media, and people were, in a frenzy to try to help Australia in whatever way they could. Okay, that was really right before the pandemic had begun. Here's another thing that happened in the middle of March. There's a video there if you really want to watch it. It says, "Coronavirus quarantined Italians sing from balconies to lift spirits." Okay, so the question I have is, how has our society been helping each other recover from this pandemic? Let's just take a look at this video just because I think it's interesting to watch. I think what makes this interesting is that this usually doesn't happen in Italy, right? The people are singing at the top of their lungs, and you can hear a dog barking in the background. Later on, they're singing from other balconies. And what we talked about in class is just the emotion and the hope that you really have when you listen to these people singing. Okay, lots of sixth graders chimed in during the discussion. We talked about some really deep things when it came to this news article. And way at the end, you see that says there were some messages of solidarity that came from China in this video that were shared on social media. So people all around the world tried to support one another and really come together in a solid movement of solidarity. So I think that was kind of interesting, kind of fun to bring that up. I think also it's important that we take a look at some other things. So for example, this chef decided to use his social networks not to spread negativity, but to teach free classes. So it says, Michelin stars chef Massimo Bottura launches free kitchen quarantine cooking classes on Instagram. Okay, now if you're like Mr. Joseph, I cook the same things over and over again. Sometimes I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich a couple of times a week. I think what's interesting about this article is he's really trying to help people sharpen their culinary skills and distract them from the world crisis. That's exactly what the article says. Okay, he's teaching people how to make bolito salad, or tortellini, and even macaroni and cheese. So thought that was kind of cool to share with the sixth graders. Another really good discussion about what's going on. We also talked about the different places in the world that were affected but also aren't affected by COVID-19 anymore. Okay, this was earlier on in the year. These places actually eliminated all of the COVID cases in their countries. Places like New Zealand, Tanzania, Fiji, Vatican City, and there's more countries and places. Okay, it's kind of neat. This article was really cool, I thought. It says, first cheetah cubs are born from in vitro fertilization from help from scientists at the National Zoo. I will link the article in the notes for this video, but you can see that these cubs were born through a process called in vitro fertilization, and they used a surrogate cheetah from help from scientists at the National Zoo. They were born on February 19th at the Columbus Zoo in Ohio to their mom, who was 6.5 years old. Okay, I thought that was kind of cool. The first cheetahs that were born through in vitro fertilization. So these are some really neat articles, I think, some really positive news. Here we have some kind of strange news. A lot of sixth graders had some interesting discussion around this topic. It says, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced that they are stepping down from their duties as senior royals in Buckingham Palace. This basically means that since they're part of the royal family, they're deciding not to be part of the family anymore. They don't want to be prince and princess, okay? They want to live their own life. They want to get out of the spotlight, whether it's the media spotlight or just their normal royal duties. So those are just some articles that we came up with just to kind of look at what's going on in the news, some kind of more positive things. The second part of class, we were taking a look at page 38 and 39, and we are reading this story right here. So again, we're going to continue with Unit 3, Ancient Egypt. The vocabulary that you're going to see inside of the story was a mummy, scorpion, and hieroglyphics. So what I'd like you to do is take a look and make sure you're very aware of those vocabulary terms. We're going to read the story, and then we're going to answer these questions at the way end. Okay, so what I like to do is I actually like to read the questions first before I read the story, because that gives me an idea of what we're going to look at. So let me read those questions to you. Number 1. When Alex heard that Patrick wanted to go into the tomb, So let's try to listen to see what Alex is going to do. Number 2. As soon as they were inside the tomb, they noticed. Number 3. The children ran down the dark corridor because. Number 4. Patrick pushed a button on the wall, and a moment later. Number 5. Phoebe got really scared when. And the last one, number 6. Before they saw the gate, the children. We're going to answer those questions during our next class next week. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this story. I'm going to see if the volume works on this. Yeah, let's begin.
Student's Book, pages 38 and 39. The Time Travelers. 2. Read and listen to the story.
The Mummy's Tomb. The children walked up to the tomb and looked in through the doorway. "Let's go in," said Patrick. "But what if it's dangerous or we get lost?" replied Alex. "Hang on, let's look at these hieroglyphics," said Phoebe. What do you think they say? Welcome? Suggested Patrick. It's keep out, I think, answered Alex. Well, I'm going in, said Patrick. If I don't come out in a few minutes, come and find me. Don't be silly. We're coming with you, said Phoebe. It was dark inside, but they could see a little. They walked for a few minutes when suddenly Phoebe screamed. Something fell on my head! She touched the top of her head, and a black creature fell onto the ground and ran away. Hey, said Alex, there are more on Patrick's back and on mine. What are they? He took one from Patrick's back and looked at it closely. Oh, it's a scorpion. There are lots of them. They're everywhere. Scorpions? I hate bugs, said Phoebe. Let's go. Oh, where's that gate? The children started running down the dark corridor to escape from the scorpions, but they came to a wall where they couldn't go any farther. Now what? Asked Phoebe. I'm not going back to those scorpions. Alex was looking at a big button on the wall. What do you think this is? He asked. Should we? But before he could finish his question, Patrick walked up and pushed it. The floor under their feet disappeared, and the next thing they knew, they were sliding very fast down a tunnel deep into the pyramid. Whoa! Patrick, why do you always have to fiddle with things? Exclaimed Phoebe. We'll never get out of here, shouted Alex. The children landed.
All right, so the next part of the story is not actually on the audio. So I'm going to need to go to the next part. So let me just go to the next part right here. All right, so the next part says, the children landed on a hard stone floor in a dark room. Okay, Patrick said. Alex, you got us in here. You can get us out. Shh, said Phoebe. I can hear something coming from over there. They all looked to where she was pointing. There was something big and white walking toward them. It got closer and closer, holding its two arms out in front of itself. Run! Screamed Phoebe. It's a mummy! The children ran toward a light that they could see, and they found themselves in a small room. Hurry, Alex, said Patrick. Help me block the door with this rock. When the door was blocked, they turned around and looked. They couldn't believe their eyes. All around them there were gold and silver objects, which were glowing in the sunlight that was mysteriously lighting the room. The children noticed a few hieroglyphics on the walls, too. Oh, it's beautiful, gasped Phoebe. It's a tomb. I'd like to stay here for hours now. Just then, another glow appeared. It was the yellow glow of the gate. I don't believe it, said Phoebe. Come on. The children walked into the light. They were gone in a flash. All right, so next time we're going to be going through these questions. You don't need to answer the questions on your own, but what we do need to do is just look back on the story to make sure that we understand the questions so that we can answer them accurately. That is it for today's class, and we will see you guys next week.